Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. It's a chilly November morning, and the first light of dawn creeps through the blinds of our small, but cozy apartment. I'm slouched at the kitchen table, the remnants of a half-eaten breakfast before me. My hands shake, not from the cold, but from a cocktail of disbelief and fury. Last night, the truth came crashing down like a freight train, and now the wreckage is strewn across every corner of my life. Emily had always been my rock, at least, that's what I thought. We met in college, fell in love, and built a life together in this modest apartment. But lately, things had felt off. I'd noticed the late nights, the furtive glances, and the way she seemed to distance herself. I should have paid more attention to the warning signs, but I was too wrapped up in my work. Little did I know that my obliviousness would cost me everything. The front door swings open with a creak, and Emily steps inside, her face drawn and tired. She doesn't see me at first. I'm hidden behind a stack of papers, pretending to read a work email, but every fiber of my being is focused on her. "Morning," she says, her voice barely a whisper as she slumps into a chair. Her eyes are red, like she's been crying, or at least that's what she wants me to think. "Morning," I reply, trying to keep my tone neutral despite the storm brewing inside me. She looks up, her gaze meeting mine, and I see it, a flicker of guilt, then a mask of indifference. "I'm sorry about last night," she says. "I should have told you earlier, but I didn't know how." I set my phone down and lean forward. "Told me what, Emily?" Her eyes dart to the floor. I need to tell you something about my work." I snort, the sound bitter in the quiet room. "Your work? Is that what this is about? You mean your little scheme with Sandra?" Her face pales. "How did you find out?" "Oh, I have my sources," I snap, cutting her off. "Like how you and Sandra conspired with my boss to get me fired." Her hand flies to her mouth. "It's not what you think." "Not what I think." I stand up, pacing the small kitchen. "Emily, Sandra and you, pleasured my boss, got me out, and took my job. They ruined me. And now you're here to pretend like it's some kind of misunderstanding." Tears well in her eyes, but her expression is defiant. "You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to go this far. We needed the job, Anne." "Needed the job?" "You know what you needed, Emily. A way out of this relationship. You were never honest with me. You've been cheating on me with Sandra's help. How long were you planning this?" She stands up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. I did what I had to do." I'm shaking now, my anger giving way to a cold, calculating resolve. "And now, Emily, you're going to pack your things. I want you out of my life." Her eyes widen in shock. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm very serious," I say, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. "You're going to leave. I'm filing for divorce, and we're done." For a moment, she just stands there, stunned. Then she turns, her face a mix of anger and hurt. "You'll regret this," she says, her voice trembling as she storms into the bedroom. I hear the sounds of drawers opening and closing, the rustling of clothes. It's surreal, like watching a nightmare unfold. I don't move. I stay where I am, my heart pounding as the enormity of what's happening sinks in. A few minutes later, Emily emerges with a suitcase, her face a mask of defiance and sorrow. She doesn't look at me as she heads for the door. "Goodbye, Jake," she says softly, her voice breaking. "I hope you find what you're looking for." The door closes behind her with a finality that echoes through the empty apartment. I stand there, staring at the spot where she had been, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions. It's over. The betrayal, the job loss, the marriage, everything is shattered. I collapse into a chair, feeling the weight of it all. This is just the beginning. I have to figure out my next move, but for now, I sit in the silence, trying to piece together the fragments of my life. One thing is certain, Emily and Sandra won't get away with this. I'll make sure of it. The days after Emily left blur together in a haze of frustration and sleepless nights. The apartment, now a cavern of loneliness, echoes with memories of laughter and betrayal. I'm at my desk, surrounded by a sea of job listings and old contacts, trying to claw my way back to some semblance of normalcy. My phone buzzes, jolting me from my thoughts. It's a text from Marcus, my best friend since college. We need to talk. Meet me at the corner pub in an hour. I type a quick reply, agreeing, and shut my laptop. I grab my jacket and head out, feeling a gnawing sense of urgency. I need to vent, and Marcus is the only person who understands the depth of my situation. The corner pub is a dimly lit, cozy spot with old wooden tables and the smell of fried food in the air. Marcus is already seated in a corner booth, his broad shoulders tense, a concerned expression etched on his face. As I approach, he stands up and gives me a hearty handshake. "Jake," he says, his voice warm despite the somber situation. "Good to see you. I've been hearing some things around town." "Hey, Marcus," I reply, sliding into the booth across from him. "Yeah, it's been rough. I'm trying to make sense of it all." He leans in, lowering his voice. "I heard from a friend at the company that Emily and Sandra didn't just get your job, they've been making waves. It's like they're trying to take over." I stare at him, dumbfounded. "What do you mean? What else could they possibly want?" Marcus takes a deep breath. "Rumor has it they're angling for a big promotion. They're working on getting your old position filled by someone they can control." My stomach churns. So, it's not just about revenge. They're making a power play. Exactly. "And there's more," Marcus says, glancing around the pub to make sure no one is listening. "I spoke to a buddy who's still with the company. He says Sandra's been talking to a lawyer, and they might be planning something bigger." I feel a cold shiver run down my spine. "What kind of something?" "Don't know yet. But if they're hiring lawyers, it's serious. You should be careful. And maybe look into legal advice yourself." "Great," I mutter. "I guess that's my next step. Thanks for the heads up." As we chat, the door swings open, and in walks Sandra, Emily's partner in crime. She's dressed in a sharp business suit, her heels clicking on the wooden floor. She spots me and Marcus, and a smirk plays at the corners of her lips. I can't help but feel a surge of anger. Sandra heads straight for our table. "Well, if it isn't Jake and his loyal sidekick," she says, her tone dripping with mockery. "I hope you're enjoying the view from the sidelines." "What do you want, Sandra?" I snap, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, just a friendly visit," she replies, taking a seat without being invited. "I wanted to see how you're holding up. Must be tough, losing your job and your wife in one fell swoop." Marcus's jaw tightens. "I think it's time for you to leave, Sandra. We're not interested in whatever game you're playing." Sandra laughs, a harsh sound that carries across the pub. "Game? I'm just here to remind Jake of the consequences of not being adaptable. You see, Jake, life moves on, and so do we." "You've made your point," I say, standing up. "Now, get out of here before I make you." Sandra's smile fades, replaced by a calculating look. "Watch your back, Jake. Things are just getting started." As Sandra walks out, Marcus looks at me with concern. "What's your plan now?" "I need to find a lawyer," I say, my mind already racing. If they're getting legal advice, then I need to be prepared. And I need to figure out how to stop them from taking over completely. Marcus nods, a look of determination in his eyes. "You're not alone in this, Jake. We'll figure it out together." I appreciate his support, but the weight of the situation presses heavily on my shoulders. As I leave the corner pub, I'm more determined than ever to reclaim my life and put an end to Emily and Sandra's machinations. The road ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear: this battle is far from over. The following morning, I wake up with a renewed sense of purpose. I have a list of lawyers to contact, a strategy forming in my mind. My first stop is the local cafe where I plan to meet with an attorney who comes highly recommended by a friend of Marcus. The cafe is bustling with early morning customers. I spot a man in a sharp suit, reading a newspaper and sipping a black coffee. He's older than I expected, with a stern face but kind eyes. I approach him, and he looks up. "Mr. Hartman?" I ask, extending my hand. "Jake Edwards, I presume," he replies, shaking my hand firmly. "Please, have a seat. I've heard a bit about your situation." I sit down, taking a deep breath. "Thank you for meeting with me on such short notice. I'm in a tough spot, and I need legal advice. My wife and her colleague have conspired to get me fired and take over my job." Hartman sets his coffee aside and leans forward, his demeanor shifting to one of professional concern. "I'm sorry to hear that. I assume you have evidence of their actions." "Some," I say, pulling out my phone and showing him the text messages and emails I've managed to gather. "But it's mostly circumstantial. They've been careful." He reviews the documents with a keen eye. "It's a good start, but we'll need more substantial evidence to build a strong case. I recommend starting with a formal complaint and gathering witness statements from anyone who might have seen or heard something relevant." I nod, feeling a bit more hopeful. "What about the job situation? They're already trying to replace me. Is there any way to contest that?" Hartman considers this. "It's possible, but it depends on your contract and the circumstances surrounding your termination. We'll need to review your employment contract and any communications related to your firing." "I'll get those over to you," I say. "What's the next step?" "First, we'll need to file a complaint with the labor board and request a review of your termination. Concurrently, we'll start building a case to address the collusion between your ex-wife and her colleague. It's going to be a process, but we'll take it one step at a time." After our meeting, I head back to the apartment to gather the necessary documents. As I'm sifting through my old work files, my phone rings. It's Marcus. "Hey, Jake," he says, his voice tense. "You might want to be careful. I just got a call from someone claiming to be a private investigator. They're looking into you." I freeze. "A private investigator? Do you know who hired them?" "No idea, but it's probably connected to Emily or Sandra," Marcus says. "I thought you should know. They might be trying to dig up dirt or intimidate you." I take a deep breath. "Thanks for the heads up. I'll keep my eyes open. I'm meeting with my lawyer this afternoon to go over my termination details." "Good luck. Let me know if you need anything," Marcus says before hanging up. I spend the rest of the day organizing my documents and preparing for the legal battle ahead. The afternoon meeting with Hartman is productive. He reviews my termination letter and contract, noting potential breaches in company policy. Based on this, Hartman says, "It looks like your termination might not have been entirely above board. We have grounds to argue that it was influenced by external factors, namely, the actions of your ex-wife and Sandra. Do you think we can prove it?" I ask, my heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and hope. "It will be challenging, but not impossible," Hartman replies. "We'll need to dig deeper into their activities and gather as much evidence as possible. I suggest we start by issuing subpoenas for any communications between your former boss, Emily, and Sandra. That could give us insight into their collaboration." As I leave the lawyer's office, my mind races. I have a renewed sense of determination, but also a growing sense of dread. The private investigator, the potential for more personal attacks, it all adds up to a fight that's about to get even more complicated. I return to the apartment to find a message from Marcus. He's arranged a meeting with a mutual friend who works as an investigative journalist. This could be the break I need, someone who can dig into Emily and Sandra's recent activities and uncover any hidden motives. I grab my coat and head out to meet Marcus and the journalist. As I step into the cafe where we're supposed to meet, I spot Marcus and a tall, sharp-looking woman with short dark hair. Marcus introduces her as Claire Donovan. "Claire, this is Jake Edwards," Marcus says. "He's the one I mentioned." "Jake, this is Claire. She's a journalist who specializes in uncovering corporate corruption and misconduct." Claire extends her hand, her gaze piercing. "Nice to meet you, Jake. Marcus tells me you're dealing with quite a situation." "Nice to meet you too," I say, shaking her hand. "Yes, it's been a rough few weeks. I'm hoping you might be able to help us find more evidence." Claire nods thoughtfully. "I'm interested. Tell me everything you know, and let's see what we can uncover." As I begin to recount the details of my ordeal, I feel a mix of hope and trepidation. With Claire's expertise and Hartman's legal guidance, maybe, just maybe, I can turn the tables on Emily and Sandra. But I know the road ahead will be fraught with obstacles and unexpected twists. The intrigue and tension are just beginning to unfold. The weeks following my meetings with Claire and Hartman are a blur of activity and mounting tension. Claire's investigative skills prove invaluable. She uncovers a trail of emails, texts, and even a few incriminating phone calls that link Emily and Sandra directly to my former boss. Hartman reviews the findings, and together, they build a solid case. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of legal strategizing, I sit at my kitchen table, flipping through a folder of evidence. The weight of it all is palpable: transcripts of conversations, financial records showing strange transactions, and damning testimony from former colleagues. I hear a knock at the door. It's Marcus, his face grim. "We've got a development," Marcus says, handing me a folder. Claire and I put together a press release. "It's time to take this public." I open the folder to find a detailed press release outlining the collusion between Emily, Sandra, and my former boss. The evidence is explosive, and the release promises to expose the whole scheme. I look up at Marcus, my heart racing. "Are you sure this is the right move?" I ask. "This could backfire." "It's the only way to force their hand," Marcus replies. "If we go public, they'll have to respond, and it'll bring more scrutiny to their actions." I nod, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. "Let's do it." The press release goes live the next day. The media coverage is immediate and intense. Reports of corporate corruption, cheating scandals, and misconduct flood news channels and social media. The public outcry is swift, and soon, Emily, Sandra, and my former boss are at the center of a storm they can't escape. But the fallout is not just public. That evening, I receive a call from Claire. "Jake, we need to talk," she says, her voice urgent. There's been a twist. I meet her at a quiet diner, where she's waiting with an anxious expression. "What's going on?" Claire takes a deep breath. "I've been doing some additional digging, and I found something surprising." It turns out that Sandra wasn't just working with Emily. She's been running her own scheme behind the scenes. She was blackmailing Emily for a cut of the job and the company's assets. I'm stunned. "Blackmail? You're saying Sandra was playing both sides?" "Exactly," Claire says. "She's been feeding information to Emily to keep her under control while secretly working with other parties." Sandra's ambition knew no bounds. As we talk, my phone buzzes with a message from Marcus. It's a link to a news article: "Corporate Scandal Unveiled, Sandra Davidson Arrested for Fraud and Blackmail." "Looks like Sandra's scheme unraveled," Claire says, shaking her head. "The authorities caught up with her just in time." I feel a rush of mixed emotions: anger, relief, and a deep sense of betrayal. So Emily was just a pawn in Sandra's game? It appears so, Claire confirms. Emily was manipulated into the situation, but that doesn't excuse her actions. Sandra's arrest will likely lead to further revelations, and Emily's reputation is already damaged beyond repair. The next few days are a whirlwind of media frenzy, legal battles, and personal reflection. Emily reaches out to me through a series of desperate texts, begging for forgiveness and a chance to explain. But I'm resolute. The damage is done, and I've come to realize that forgiveness is not an option. I meet Emily one last time at a local park. She looks haggard, her once proud demeanor replaced by a shadow of regret. "Jake," she says, her voice trembling. "I never intended for things to get this bad. Sandra manipulated me, and I was too blinded by my own desires to see it." I look at her, my heart heavy. "Emily, it's not just about what happened. It's about the betrayal and the way you conspired against me. I can't forgive that. We've both been hurt, but this, what we had, is irreparably broken." Tears well in her eyes. "I understand. I'm sorry for everything. I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," I say quietly. "But sorry isn't enough." We part ways, the finality of the moment sinking in. Emily leaves, and I watch her go, knowing that the chapter of my life with her is truly over. In the following weeks, I focus on rebuilding. The media frenzy dies down, and Sandra's arrest brings closure to the scandal. My former boss is also facing serious charges, and the company is undergoing significant changes. I'm left with the task of picking up the pieces of my life and moving forward. Claire and Marcus stand by my side, offering support and friendship. We celebrate the end of this dark chapter with a sense of cautious optimism. The betrayal was deep, but the truth has been revealed, and justice, in some form, has been served. As I look ahead, I'm filled with a sense of hope and determination. The past is behind me, and the future is full of possibilities. It's time to move on, to rebuild, and to find a new path forward. The deception is exposed, and the finality of our parting is a testament to the strength of facing the truth and moving on from the lies.